For more insight into how this rule change will impact shippers and small businesses and U.S. consumers, we're joined by William Lee. He is the chief economist at the Milken Institute and a welcome guest, frequent our program. William, always a pleasure to see you.
Great to be here, Sean.
Okay, now this exemption had been in place a long time, more than half a century. Why end it now? What reasons is the Trump administration giving?
The Trump administration is trying to be consistent about its import policy. If we're putting tariffs on stuff, then we should put it on all stuff. And even though this rule has been so widely used and so popular with consumers and small businesses, it has had problems come up in the last several years. For example, of all the seizures that the customs people did, 90% of these were small de minimis imports,
Right.
but it also was a source of 97% of all seizures of counterfeit goods. 98% of all drugs that were confiscated also came from these packages. So it really has been used for good and nefarious purposes. And I think the Trump administration is just saying we have to shut this down because so many of these exemptions are being abused, and now it's time to just tighten up on it. And it is going to cost consumers because
Absolutely.
consumers have been so used to these low-cost imports, especially from Hong Kong and China, from Temu and Shine.
And I think that's one of the things that people are frustrated about. There just hasn't been a great deal from the administration how this rollout was going to play out. So what does this change mean for consumers? And many countries are just as confused as U.S. consumers. And by pausing these shipments abroad, it kind of speaks volumes about the way Trump measures are being implemented.
Well, I think it speaks measures of how people have gotten used to shipping stuff. And the shippers themselves just haven't set up the infrastructure needed to collect duties when they're supposed to collect duties because of this exemption. They have to now apply a different sort of payment system in order to collect these smaller payments. But let's keep this some perspective here. These de minimis imports are only about 1.5% of total imports in the United States, but they are about 7% of all consumer imports. So the consumers really are getting hit hard in that sense, and it's causing shippers, because of the volume of packages coming in, to have to change their infrastructure, and that will take some time. And right now, they're going through the pains of adjustment.
Yeah, let me throw you another curveball and see how this plays in. Because when Trump's tariffs first kicked in, we heard a lot of information out there to consumers. Look, just order directly from an overseas provider. It's a way to skirt the tariffs. Now, I hear what you're saying about the Trump administration trying to be uniform across the board. So is this a way the administration is cracking down on that loophole?
That's right, and I think the initial instructions about using de minimis exemptions for consumers was at first blush possibly one way of saving small businesses and consumers from incurring some higher costs.
Right.
But as I mentioned earlier, the source of 90%, 97% of counterfeit goods and 98% of all narcotic seizures, that really, I think, hit the administration in the head and said, wow, this really has been a channel that's been abused, and let's shut that down. Because remember, a lot of these tariffs were put on countries because they were not being effective in shutting down the flow of narcotics and fentanyl in particular.
Okay, let's look at the legitimate uses. So how is this going to affect international small business owners that have simply built brands on sites such as Amazon, Etsy, Shane, Temu? How are they going to adjust to this changing business model? And because any way you slice it, this is an additional tax on the U.S. consumer. We see inflation going up, we see consumer prices going up, we see consumer confidence going down. I can't imagine that this equation is going to help any.
Sean, you're absolutely right. And I think the miraculous thing about entrepreneurs is that they really find ways of going around things. Shine and Temu, for example, are setting up distribution centers in the United States so that they really can bring in large volumes and then ship them out from the United States. There's also the use of free trade zones, where a lot of small businesses now are saying, instead of bringing in a lot of imported stuff that we just relabel and price to sell to consumers, we're going to add some value to it. We're going to remanufacture some of these inputs in the free trade zone so that the products that leave the free trade zone are taxed or tariffed at a very low rate as opposed to the high rate that they are initially coming in. So a lot of businesses are adapting their supply chains, adapting their business models, adapting their production to take into the account the other possibilities out there. Like I said, free trade zones and using shipping warehouses that allow people to bring in mass amounts of stuff that save them on shipping costs is the next way to go.
Yeah, but in the interim, you have a lot of countries that have just stopped everything right now. People are going to be frustrated not being able to get stuff that they're so used to getting with just a click on the mouse. But I presume there are winners out there. Who are the winners?
And a lot of businesses specialize in bringing in stuff from China and Latin America and lower production cost areas and just relabeling them and just selling them directly. And a lot of the American businesses that competed with them were going out of business. And now there's a hope that bicycle manufacturers and other small manufacturing that has disappeared for so long may have a chance to revive here in the United States again.